Controversial historical sources inspire debates and essays. One such source is the Administrando Imperio. What is so controversial about this historical source? It is the only source that describes Serb arrival to the Balkans. Historians usually use several historical sources to verify information. It has to be true if it is mentioned in 10 or 20 documents. But what to do when there is only one document? You either believe the author or you don't. Who wrote the Administrando Imperio? The official author is Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus. He ruled between 913 and 959. There is debate whether Emperor ordered his scholars to write or he did it himself. Either way, Emperor Constantine was the force behind the Administrando Imperio. The Administrando Imperio means on the governance of the empire in English. Despite the Latin name, the manuscript is in medieval Greek. Why does it have Latin title? The manuscript got its name only in 1611. In 1611, the text was published by Johannes Mercius. He named the manuscript the Administrando Imperio. It is believed the manuscript was written between 948 and 952. The manuscript was domestic and foreign manual for Emperor Constantine's son and heir. Constantine was known as Scholar Emperor. He would have had the best available sources on his disposition. This gives Emperor Constantine credibility. Emperor Constantine had no reason to lie to his son Romanus. Serbs in his era were one of many tribes living in the empire. Emperor had no reason to love or hate Serbs more than other tribes. Constantine writes about the empire and all neighboring nations. He mentions Hungarians, Pechenegs, Kievan Rus, South Slavs, Arabs, Lombards, Armenians, and Georgians. There are 4 surviving copies of the Administrando Imperio. Why would Constantine's son Romanus need more than one copy? We cannot say how popular the manuscript was. What does Constantine say about Serbs? He says that white Serbs lived in the area called Bojki. Bojki is Serb homeland. A named Serb ruler died and his 2 sons decided to divide people. One brother stayed in Bojki while the other left. Serbs arrived to the Balkans during the reign of Byzantine Emperor Heraclius. He ruled between 610 and 641. It is confirmed that Slavic tribes arrived to the Balkans during this period. There is every reason to believe that Serbs were among Slavic tribes. Avars and Slavs attacked Singidunum in 548. Serbian capital Belgrade is built on the ashes of Singidunum. What is controversial about this? Some Serbs want to believe in autochthonic theory about Serb origin. This is fringe theory about Serbs being the oldest nation in the Balkans. But facts contradict this statement. There were no Slavs living in the Balkans in ancient times. Tribes living in the Balkans were Greek, Illyrians, Thracians, and even Celts. Serbian language is Slavic. There are no Illyrian and Thracian words in Serbian. But this doesn't mean there wasn't mixing between tribes. Genetic tests proved genetic similarities between Balkan nations. Accepting Constantine's manuscript as truth doesn't mean Serbs are less ancient. Serbs lived in Bojki for generations. This means Serbs are much older than 1400 years. Ancient history suffers from the lack of sources. Many theories will never be confirmed or debunked. What are other problems? Constantine is the only one who mentions the existence of Bojki. People living in medieval times were notorious for bad geography. They often misspelled the names and used wrong information. This leads to huge confusion. Boyki might be Bohemia. Some think Boyki was in present-day Ukraine. Pliny the Younger in 1st century AD mentions tribe Serboi who lived near Black Sea. Claudius Ptolemy in 2nd century AD mentions people named Serboi or Sirboi. They lived behind the Caucasus. Some historians connect Boyki with the Boykos. Boykos or Highlanders lived in Carpathian mountains. Today Boykos are almost extinct. There are 250 Boykos in Poland and 130 Boykos in Ukraine. In Ukrainian language, Boykos are called Boyki. This should be the end of the road, right? If only it was so simple. Constantine says White Serbia and White Croatia shared border. The white is not about skin color. It's about the migration route. In medieval era, white would mean west. Instead of white Serbs, there should be West Serbs. This theory says that Serbs were West Slavs. They lived near Elbe River and were a subgroup of Wends. Wends had a ruler named Dervan. After Dervan died, his sons divided people. Some historians believe that Dervan was the Serb ruler mentioned by Constantine. What are the evidence of this theory? In present-day Germany, there is an ethnic minority called Sorabs. Some historians believe Serbs and Sorabs are the same. In fact, Serbs call Sorabs Lužički Srbi. Lužički Srbi means Serbs from Lužice. Sorabs call themselves Serbia or Serbi. Both Serbian and Sorabian languages are Slavic. But there are no particular similarities between Serbs and Sorabs. This can be explained by long separation. Many things happened during 1400 years. Only 20,000 people speak Sorbian language today. The rest of Sorabs speak German. It is estimated there are between 60,000 and 80,000 Sorabs today. This is not the end of the whole problem. Byzantine authors like to use ancient names for people. In Byzantine sources between 11th and 15th century, Serbs are called Tribali. Tribali were an ancient Thracian tribe that lived near Morava River. They were last mentioned in 3rd century AD. Anna Komnene in Alexiad, written in 1148, mentions Serbs under the names Sklaveni and Dalmati. Habsburg Empire often referred to Serbs as Illyrians. Exonyms are names given to a place by foreigners. Serbs had enough exonyms to drive historians insane. In Latin sources, Serbs are called Rasciani. Serb medieval capital was Ras and the land was called Rascia. Some Latin sources speak of rulers of Serbia and Rascia. This would mean Serbia and Rascia are not the same. There are few medieval sources in Serbian. We cannot say what medieval Serbs thought about their ancient homeland. Only in 19th century Serbs had enough education and freedom to start investigating. But in 19th century it was already too late for many historical sources. Serb medieval history before Nemanjić dynasty is open for interpretation. What do I think? I tend to believe in the written word. Oral history is very tricky and should be used only when there is no written sources. I accept the Administrando Imperio as valid source. But I do accept Constantine made some mistakes. There were no fact-checkers in medieval time. he might have been wrong about the name Bojki. But Serbs had to come from somewhere. Serbs were dominant when they mixed with other tribes, and this secured the survival of Serb name. I'm very proud of Serbs for keeping their identity from small tribe to a real nation.